Michelle said, is my mic on? You can hear me okay. Michelle said, she's had, a little bit of, it's been hard for her. She had a lot of friends that have children graduating and how she experienced a little bit of anger with this whole situation. Well, isn't it amazing that we live in really strange times for all of us. We're all trying to, figure this out. I know for many of us, it's probably for you too, it seems kind of surreal at times. Oftentimes I wonder, am I going to wake up one day and it just all have been like a dream, And I dreamt some, in a movie or something. But we're living in unprecedented times for sure. I read somewhere that we're living in they call it a time, an age of outrage. An age of outrage. And all you have to do is turn on your TV, right? And you see it absolutely everywhere. Everyone's getting angry all the time. Everyone's getting offended for no matter what someone does, someone else takes an offense and gets upset with them. And then it's back and forth, and it just seems to be never ending. But let me ask you, because it's always important for us to listen to a message or read a book or whatever, and not think of how it affects everybody else, but how does it impact me? And how does this apply to me? And I hopefully today in this story, in this ancient story of David, we're going to recap a little bit of David's life. But this ancient story is very applicable to us today, especially in the times in which we're living. But let me ask you a question, just in your own mind. Think about it. What today? What is it that offends you? What is it that gets you upset? Gets underneath your skin? What gets you angry today? What pushes your button? All different kind of ways to say it, right? What pushes your buttons? What provokes you? Maybe it's just the news headlines. Maybe it's the news headlines of all the outrage that's out there. You're outraged because of the outrage. Maybe it's that. Maybe you're like me and you're outraged that you got to wear a mask everywhere. It was funny, I was just in the room right before coming out here. Chris was back there with me, and I said, it's good to see you, no mask. And I was kind of, I knew what I was doing. You know what I mean? A little bit, just having fun. Anyways, what provokes you? Maybe today for you it's a family member even, right? And through all this time of being quarantined and so forth, and being in close proximity all the time, and maybe someone's getting underneath your skin that's right in your own family. Maybe it's out on the road, right? I always mention that one because that's one of mine. Not driving, right? And how people drive out there. Maybe you didn't like the way someone was driving. Or how about this? I think this is a big one. What about this? What about if someone insults a group that you kind of see yourself a part of, right? So they're talking about this group, and you see yourself part of that group, and you get angry because of that. You experience a little bit of outrage. Or your neighbor wants to pick a fight with you. Well, in this story today, we're going to see David faces all kind of situations in his life, just like I'm talking about right now. I mean, it's just amazing. If you've never read the story, after this message, you need to go back and you need to read the story that we'll be talking about today. We've covered a lot of ground in David's life so far, so let's just, if we can, just real quick, let's just recap. So we started in David's life as a young boy, didn't we? A young shepherd boy. Just kind of this, you get this image of this young, handsome guy who's just kind of fearless, right? He just has, how we talk about with kids, have a faith like a child, right? David has this kind of faith that he could face a lion or a bear and God's going to help him, right? Just kind of like, it's a faith that as you get older, you lose that because you realize, well, that's ridiculous, right? But when you're younger, you can have that kind of faith. And so we first encounter David fighting Goliath and defeats him. And then he becomes so popular with the people that Saul, the king, starts to get a little worried, a little jealous. And so Saul starts thinking, hey, David's going to be coming after my job. And so he starts pursuing him. And so David has to go into hiding. And so David starts this flee from Saul in caves and hiding in holes and all kind of stuff. And during this time, he kind of has this following of misfits, right? They kind of join with him. But Saul is continually after him. And what we see too is a couple times David runs into Saul and has an opportunity to harm Saul, and he doesn't, does he? Now he shows Saul mercy, this one who is after him, to kill him. He doesn't look to, he had a word, a prophecy that he would be king. But he says, listen, it's not in my time. I'm not gonna take the kingdom. I'm not gonna be king by blood. I'm just not gonna do that. So finally, of course, we know he does become king. And then we come into a period of his life where he kind of gets used to, and listen, I hope that you're taking this story and you're applying it appropriately, if you can, to your life. He gets this job, right? And he's the king, and he gets kind of complacent in his job, doesn't he? Right? When kings are usually out to war, he's just kind of there in his house and just kind of chilling, not doing what he should be doing. And he just kind of settles into this role as king. And then we know he sleeps with a married woman, and he has her husband killed. Really, it's kind of in his hand. And after he's confronted by a prophet, Nathan, you remember the story, and David hears Nathan, listens to his story, and David repents. And Nathan says this to him. Nathan says, listen, God forgives you. He forgives you. But Nathan goes on to say, that doesn't mean, David, that all is going to be, peaches and cream from here on out. Isn't that true about our life, right? We're forgiven. It doesn't mean that all the stuff that we did in our life, did wrong or whatever, it's just going to be washed under the carpet and everything's going to be good. No, there are what? What's the word? There are consequences to our actions, always, 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 always. Why is it that 18 to 24-year-olds do all the crazy sports, right? Because they don't think of consequences. Their brain isn't developed enough yet. They don't want to hear that because they think their brain is overdeveloped, right? They know more than everybody else. But the truth is they don't think of consequences, right? I was talking to my friend down in Florida last week, talking about our age now and about how, there are certain things I probably could do, right? I go, I just choose not to do them now. And I think of the consequences. Now, the consequences where I could hurt myself and I couldn't golf, I'll be honest. And that's what I want to do is golf, right? And you guys want to do that. So I don't want to hurt myself, right? So you think of consequences. And so we're seeing David face these terrible consequences in his life. And because of this, David, when you read the story, he kind of withdraws into a shell. And he's really just, he moves from this man of action that we saw as a younger man to a man of inaction. I think sometimes it's because of David's, let me just say it like this. Guilt can be a really powerful motivator. Don't you agree? Guilt. And a lot of times people use guilt to get you to do things. And I'll be honest with you, it is a powerful motivator, but only in the short run. Guilt in the long run, I think that's what's happening to David. David has this overwhelming guilt in his life, even though he's been forgiven. I'm here with me. Even though you've been forgiven, you've been told God's forgive you, and you can't forgive who? Yourself. You can't forgive yourself. And the guilt is the guilt's eating you up from the inside out. As David, and he just withdraws, and listen, he can't even make good decisions for his family, let alone his kingdom. Listen to this. He lost his inability to lead. So watch this. This is talking about one of his kids. He said, now his father, King David, had never disciplined him at any time, even by asking, why are you doing that? This is where David's at. Now, David had a lot of children, right? Said this one never disciplined. How many know discipline's important? Not just for your kids, but for your own life. Discipline's important. Boundaries are important, right? Know where you are. Discipline is important. When you're raising children, absolutely discipline is important. Actually, psychologists tell us that kids want to know where their boundaries are. They push them, not to challenge you, they want to know, because when you have boundaries, there's safety. Isn't that true? You ever drive down a road at night? I remember one time driving in Florida, driving down the road, it's dark, kind of misty out, you're looking for lines on the road, you can't see them, and this is going across Alligator Alley, right? And so, there's swamp on both sides. And I faced this one time in North Carolina too. And when you can't see those lines, you're just like, man, where am I? Am I right? Anybody else? Where am I? Without those boundaries, you're just out there, you're just kind of lost. So boundaries are important. And it seems like this is a pattern for David now. And it leads to chaos in his life. And many of his children, not just this one, many of his children start living this self-indulgent life. Listen to this. Then it all comes to the head with one of his sons, Amnon. Anybody ever hear of Amnon? Amnon is one of his sons, and he rapes his half-sister, Tamar. This is King David's son. Why? There are no rules. There are no discipline. David's not... So discipline sounds like a harsh word. There's no leadership, right? David is not being the leader of his home. Same thing's happening to his kingdom. David is failing at leading his kingdom. And so the wheels are falling off, as they say. Now listen to this. You ready for this? This is 2 Samuel 13. So when David hears about Amnon and Tamar, you know what the Bible says, David? This is about David. When King David heard what had happened, he was very angry. And that's it. That's it. He was angry. He didn't do a thing. Not one thing. Now, do you understand that the king in the day, he's the judge of the people? Now he can appoint people to be judges in his place, but he ultimately is the judge. And it says that he was very angry. But he did nothing legally, nothing, no charges, no prosecution. And this was a day when, like I said, the king was the judge over all of this. So the man of action becomes the man of inaction. The man of high moral value, right? Has a moral compass like none other. All of a sudden just becomes this inept king. So this is where David is right now. It's bad for him. It's bad for his family. It's bad for the nation. Okay, so he has another son. You may have heard of this one. Another son is Absalom. Absalom actually takes Tamar in, and he cares for Tamar the rest of her life. And Absalom did something. He waited for 2 years after taking Tamar in. He waited for 2 years for David to do something, for there to be some sort of action taken, some sort of justice. Does this sound like familiar today? Are we talking about these kind of things today? About justice on behalf of Tamar. And so Absalom, after 2 years, decides, what's he decide? I gotta do it myself. I have to bring justice myself for Tamar. So here's what he does. He invites his stepbrother, his half-brother, Amnon, the rapist, to a party. You know what he does? He kills him. He kills him. Now, you should go read this yourself. There's a lot in here, and it'll be fascinating for you. Let's make a long story short. After many years of inaction, Absalom decides that it's time for David to no longer be king. And so Absalom kind of hatches a plan to kind of replace his father as king. It's kind of already started in that direction a little bit, at least in Absalom's mind. So it says this in 2 Samuel, now Absalom was praised as the most handsome man in all of Israel. I can so relate to Absalom in so many ways. It says he was... That wasn't a joke, but... It says he was flawless from... See what I'm talking about? He was flawless from head to foot. He cut his hair only once a year, and then only because it was too heavy. He was a rock star. Think of Robert Plant, early Led Zeppelin, right? And this is Absalom. And so Absalom also had a soft side to him. The Bible says this, the Bible says that he had 3 sons and 1 daughter. Guess what his daughter's name was? Tamar. He named his daughter Tamar. It says she was very beautiful. I think he named his own daughter after Tamar to always be a reminder to him. Every time he looked at her and saw her, to be a reminder of that situation with his sister. So he hatches this plan. Here's what it says. He got up early in the morning and went out to the gate of the city. Now, the gate of the city, if you don't know, isn't just a doorway to come into the city. The gate of the city was this, called a chamber with all kind of rooms, and that's where kind of the court was. And so people would come to the gate or the court of the city with their disputes. And then what would happen is the king, or like I said, if he appointed somebody to be judge, would come to the gate of the city and would resolve any of the issues that they have. It was a judge, it was a court. And so it says that he went to the gate of the city when people brought a case to the king for judgment. Absalom would ask, "Where in Israel are you from?" And they would tell him their tribe. Then Absalom would say, "You've really got a strong case here. It's too bad the king isn't here to hear it. I wish I were judge. Then everyone could bring their case to me for judgment, and I would give them justice." You see what he's doing? You see what he's setting up here? He said, what he's saying is, I wish I can do it. The king's supposed to do it. He's not doing it. I wish I could do it for you, because you really, what? You deserve it. Like, you deserve justice. Now, watch this. When the people tried to bow down before him, you want to get people on your side? When people tried to bow down before him, Absalom wouldn't let them. Instead, he took them by the hand and kissed them. Boy, what's he going after? He's going after the heart, isn't he? Absalom is winning their heart. Not too much unlike a young boy, David captured the hearts and the imaginations of the people, didn't he? And so, but Absalom, this is strategic for Absalom. Absalom did this with everyone who came to the king for judgment. So he stole the hearts of the people of Israel. The Bible says he did this for 4 years. He's clever, isn't he? Cleverly manipulative. Now watch this. This is a great story, isn't it? Hope you're paying attention. It says he hires people to go to the towns and villages on a given day. And they go on this given day, and they're told at a certain time of that day. So you can imagine, right? It's easy to do it with cell phones today, but he arranges this certain day, all the towns and villages around. He has plans to go there. And they take trumpets. And at a certain time of the day, the trumpets are sounded. And this is what is decreed. Absalom has been crowned king. You know what this is? This is the very first fake news. This is it right here. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. Do the people believe it's true? Absolutely they do. Why? Because someone told them that it was true. Absalom has been crowned king. This absolutely just blows me away. Bible says when the people heard it, they believed it. Absalom does after 4 long years, he's provoked to action. And what has he been doing for 4 years? Not nothing. He's been grooming the people, hasn't he? He's been grooming them. He's been bringing them right along. And to be honest, he's been, talking just a little bit about, he doesn't really say too much bad, but I wish you had a king who could really bring justice to you. That's really what you need. That's what we all need. See, we all want that, right? Wish you had that. That's my wish for you. If I were a king, let me tell you what I would do, right? This is what he's doing. For 4 years, they just hear this and hear this and hear this and hear this, and they realize they have no king that's doing that for them. And then they hear the fake news, and they want it to be so true, they just believe it. Fantastic. Absalom is now king. Long live Absalom, and don't you love his hair, right? Probably what they're going around saying. And so he leads this parade into Jerusalem to go overthrow his dad, okay? So here we go. We're going to pick up here now with the story with David. So a messenger goes ahead of this parade that's going into Jerusalem with Absalom leading this parade. A messenger soon arrived in Jerusalem to tell David, all Israel has joined Absalom in a conspiracy against you. Now, like most things in the Bible, you can read in all different kind of ways, right? I think so. But I kind of read this as, you ever hear somebody say, I had a wake-up call? You ever hear that before, right? I had this feeling like this was a wake-up call for David, right? Because he's been a man of inaction. So I'd expect, whatever happens, Absalom's going to come in, he's going to take over, and I'm just going to sit here and wait for it, right? That's what I expect. Yeah, he's done nothing now for years. But it says this. It says, then we must flee at once, or it'll be too late, David urged his men. Hurry. If we get out of the city before Absalom arrives, both we and the city will be spared from disaster. So in this one verse here, I get the sense that David starts to realize, hey, listen, this isn't just about me. I may get that kind of me-itis, how this affects me, and you don't think about anybody else. That's where David was for so long. Me, woe is me, and the guilt and all this kind of stuff, and pity me, and he pities himself. Finally, he kind of snaps here and goes, you know what, whoa, wait a minute. Holy smokes, I haven't done anything for so long, and now he's coming in here, I have to do something drastic. I'm just going to get out of Dodge, right? Why? Well, to save a lot of lives. Not just my own. This isn't just this fear, I'm going to flee to get out of here. It's like David didn't care about his life at this point. But this is a wake-up call, and he said, no, we have to leave. We have to get out of the city before Absalom arrives. It's just like he just snaps all at once. And he abandons the throne to save his beloved Jerusalem and the people. Now, we figure David is about 61 here at the time. 61, he flees to be a fugitive once again. But when he flees, it's as if David, maybe I'm making a little jump here, but for me it just feels like if you know the whole story, right, if you know the rest of the story, it's like at this moment to me, it's like the old David is back. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you don't know that at the time. Like, you don't know that. If you're reading the story for the first time and you see that, you don't necessarily get that sense. But when you know the whole narrative, you get this idea that this is the moment. This is the moment in time when David wakes up and the old David is back. You have to read the story. It's full of spies and intrigue and battles and strategies. Listen, it's during this time, right now when he's fleeing from Absalom, that he writes Psalm 3. Let me just read a little bit of Psalm 3 for you. It says this, I lay down and slept, and I woke up in safety, for the Lord was watching over me. I am not afraid of the 10,000 armies who surround me on every side. See, this sounds like the David of old, doesn't it? Doesn't sound like the David, that's looking at Bathsheba and having someone killed and, all that mess that he was involved in for so long. This sounds like a different David. This sounds like a David who has his sense about him again, who has the idea back of who he is and who God is and who he is in relationship to God. But David says something pretty profound here. He said this, if the Lord sees fit, David said, he will bring me back to see the ark and the tabernacle again. But if he is through with me, then let him do what seems best to him. Now, I think David is finally coming to grips with his failures, and he's not trying to give himself a pass or anything. But he says, what can I do? But let's think what happens next. So he's leaving the city. Okay, this is where we're going to pick up the message. I have 9 minutes. This is the good bit. It said a man came out of the village cursing him. It was Shemaiah, son of Gera, from the same clan as guess who? Saul. Same clan as Saul, Saul's family. He threw stones at the king. Get out of here, you murderer, you scoundrel, he shouted at David. The Lord is paying you back for all the bloodshed in Saul's clan. You stole his throne, and now the Lord has given it to your son Absalom. At last you will taste some of your own medicine. You are a murderer. That's what this guy's saying to Saul, throwing sticks and rocks and dirt at him. This is enough to drive anybody crazy, don't you think? So here's the thing, what are the crimes that he's accusing David of? Stole the throne? No, right? Murder, well, kind of earlier, but not the murder he's talking about here. Like took the throne by bloodshed. The stuff he's being accused of, David is not guilty of. Have you ever been accused of something you're not guilty of? Anybody? Ever say anything about you that is not true about you? How did it make you feel? David did not shed blood to get the throne. He didn't do anything evil to get the throne. Matter of fact, he spared Saul's life twice. How does he respond? How does David respond? Why should this dead dog curse my Lord? This is one of his aides, right? He said, why should this dead dog curse my Lord? Abishai, son of Zeruiah, demanded, let me go over and cut off his head, right? He's with him. Let me go take care of him. He'll cut his head off. No, the king said. Who asked your opinion, you sons of Zeruiah? If the Lord has told him to curse me, who are you to stop him? Then David said to Abishai and to all his servants, my own son is trying to kill me. Doesn't this relative of Saul have even more reason to do so? Wow. He's seeing things completely different, isn't he? See, this is old David coming back. We see more and more and more of old David throughout this. He says, leave him alone and let him curse me, for the Lord has told him to do it. And perhaps the Lord will see that I am being wronged and bless me because of these curses today. So what he's saying is, and I know he's giving God all this credit for this, right? But what he's saying is this. I was told one time, when I did a 360 on me in Africa, and people wrote all kind of stuff about me, right? And if they liked me, it's kind of the halo effect, right? If they really didn't like me, which is hard to imagine, if they would write some things that maybe weren't so great, right? And here's what the guy facilitating my leadership thing said to me. He said, Jeff, here's the thing. If it's true about you, then don't you want to know it? Then learn from it. If it's true about you, learn from it, take that away, and learn how to change. If it's not true about you, then don't worry about it. Right? Then don't worry about it. It's kind of like the same thing he's saying here. Listen, if I deserve it, I deserve it. If it's true about me, then fine. If not, then maybe somehow he's resting on God, saying, listen, God's going to take care of me. And I believe, like it says in Romans, right, that although that harm may be meant toward in a certain thing in my life, but God can use that situation for good in my life. So he says, leave him alone and let him curse me. Maybe I deserve it. He says, but I trust in God. How do you respond when, are there people in your life that know how to know your buttons? Anybody know your buttons? Somebody knows your buttons? Yeah. Knows how to get underneath your skin, right? And they know it. So, just think about for yourself now, okay? How do you respond? How do you? You let that anger kind of boil up inside of you. How do you handle that? Do you get provoked? Are you easily led down the road of retaliation? Well, let's learn from David. I want to look at 4 things, but the first one really is the one I want to kind of hone in on. I think it's so important. I recently heard a comedian talk about this. One thing we learn from David. Number 1 is, if you want to write notes down somewhere, is this. There's a book that I've been reading. The book is called Unoffendable. Unoffendable. And that's number 1, is unoffendable. Now, as soon as you hear that word, I don't know about you, but you may think, I'm offended you even said that. Be unoffendable. Right? Huh? Is that even possible? Dallas Willard said this is the beginning of the book. Dallas Willard said, he didn't write the book, someone else did, but quote from Dallas Willard, he said, anger is the most fundamental problem in human life. So when we talk about unoffendable, we're not talking about being offended like your senses being offended, like that smell is offensive. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being unoffendable when it comes to anger and hurt in your life. So in the book it says this, forfeiting, this is a kind of a definition, forfeiting our right to anger makes us deny ourselves and makes us others-centered. When we start living this way, it changes everything. But then it goes on to say this, it says actually it's not even forfeiting a right, because that right doesn't exist. That right doesn't exist. He makes a good argument in the book for it, and I'd encourage you to read the book. I'm not done with it yet, but what I've read so far has been really, really good. But the idea is this, friends, you can choose to not be offended. It's your choice. It really is. And the more I thought about it, I thought, well, it really is my choice. I can choose to let this person offend me, get underneath my skin, or I can choose not to. He says this, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Abisha demanded. Let me go over there and cut his head off. No, said the king. Who asked your opinion anyways? If God told him to curse me, who are we to stop him? I want to read you something I found in Psychology Today about how we can become less, talking about being slighted, right? Getting angry or being slighted. Have you ever been, what slighted means, right? Have you ever been slighted? I think we've all been slighted, right? Whether it's been on purpose or by accident or whatever, we've all been slighted. So this Dr. Stephen Taylor says this, talking about being slighted. He said, we all feel slighted when we're not given the respect that we feel we deserve. Maybe someone forgets your birthday or doesn't return your phone calls. Maybe, and especially be in a position of kind of leadership sometime and just, and forget to mention somebody from the front, the platform. Maybe miss a graduate. I hope we didn't miss any graduates, but miss a graduate, right? And people feel slighted. Maybe a person pushed in front of you in line. Psychologists call slights like this narcissistic injuries. They bruise our ego. But before you react to a slight, think of the consequence. We can replay the situation over and over again. This could lead to, what do you think it leads to? Sliding the person back, right? Someone, doesn't invite you to their birthday party. It's their birthday. I'm not going to send them a card. Right? I think that's what it says in here. She invited me to her party. She didn't invite me to her party, so I'm not sending her a birthday card. And if a person reacts to your resentment, it could end up in a full-scale feud. A good friendship could be dissolved, or a close family member could needlessly fall apart. Close family could needlessly fall apart. Even more dangerously, pay attention to this. Even more dangerously, especially with young men, slights can trigger a violent reaction. Criminologists have noted that many acts of violence stem from a sense of slight. The psychologists Martin Daly and Margot Wilson estimate that two-thirds of all murders were the result of men feeling they had been disrespected. We need to learn, friends, how to be unoffendable. David, I think, shows us two areas here. The first is this. David shows us we just need to learn to have thick skin. Some of us have too thin a skin, right? You need to learn to have thick skin. David kind of had literal thick skin, didn't he? Right? Throwing dirt and rocks at him. But even beyond that, he said, listen, he heard the insults, right? We've all heard the insults. We've all heard that about us. He said, I'm not going to let it bother me, right? If it's true, then I better listen anyways. I better learn how to change. If what they're saying about me is true, right? Then I want to know. If it's not true, I'm not going to let it bother me, right? I'm just going to let it roll off my back. David has thick skin. Listen to what the Bible says. Fools show their annoyance at once. Fools, raise your hand. All right, a couple of us. Okay, Okay, you truthful people, raise your hand. Same one. No, same ones. Only the same ones. Thank you. Fools show their annoyance at once, but the prudent overlook an insult. And then Proverbs 19 says this, it is a man's glory to overlook. Glory! Do you see what it says? It's to a man's glory to overlook an offense. Patton said this one time. He said, never fight a battle where you don't gain anything by winning. Oh God, when I read that, I thought how many battles I went into, then when it was over, I go, oh, well, I won. You know what I mean? Didn't do nothing for me. Right? And I won. Like big deal. He said, never even go into a battle. So another way to put that, right? You've heard this before. Hey, pick your battles wisely, right? Especially you're a parent, you're going to have a lot of battles. Pick them wisely. Sometimes we battle things and we win and we go, man, I wasted one of my battles on how long their hair can be. You know what I mean? Like, that was a dumb battle. I won, but I didn't gain anything, right? So choose your battles wisely. David also shows self-restraint. So another proverb says this, fools give full vent to their rage, but the wise bring calm in the end. Be unoffendable. Number 2, be understanding. Then David said to Abishai and all his servants, my own son is trying to kill me. Doesn't this relative of Saul have even more reason to do so? Look, he understood. Like, I get it. So how else do we say that? Try the best you can to put yourself in their shoes. You know, if I was this guy and I came from Saul's family and that's all I knew, I might act the same way. Listen, my own son's trying to kill me. This guy, I get it. He's understanding. Number 3, be untroubled. Be untroubled. It says, leave him alone and let him curse, for the Lord has told him to do it. And perhaps the Lord will see that I am being wrong and bless me because of these curses today. Be untroubled. And I go back to Romans, right? This idea that, God, even in this mess, that I've made, it's of my own doing. Anybody? My own doing? Made a mess. It's my own fault, my own doing. You know what? If I just pull back and I just admit to it and not worry about it, I'll let God sort it out and make something of this mess. Aren't you glad that it seems like that's a specialty of God's? Making something beautiful of your mess that you made? But the only way you experience that is having made messes, then got out of it and look back and go, wow, I can't believe God did something with that. I can't believe God did something with my life after that. I thought I screwed up so bad that I could never do anything. The world obviously says I can't, right? But God can take something that I even screw up and make something beautiful out of it. It says, so David and his men continued down the road, and Shimei kept pace with them on a nearby hillside, cursing and throwing stones and dirt at David. But David was untroubled. Number 4, be unresentful. Unresentful. Okay, this is really good. There's so many different plot twists and everything, and I know them over time, but you got to hear this. This is so good. This is a twist here. So David, real quick. David has to flee. David flees. He crosses the Jordan. How ironic, right? Because they cross the Jordan, come into Jerusalem. Now David has to flee the very city that he loves. He has to cross Jordan and go out, right? So time passes by and everything, and there's war, and Absalom ends up getting killed, and David ends up coming back across the Jordan, back to Jerusalem to again be king. Are you with me? Okay, so he comes back across and says this. Listen to this. Shimei, you remember who he is? The rock-throwing guy, cursing guy? Shimei hurried across with the men of Judah to welcome King David. 1,000 other men from the tribe of where? Benjamin. Where's Saul from? Benjamin. Were with him. He comes back. He went cursing just by himself, throwing stones and dirt at him. Now he comes back when King David's coming in, right? He brings 1,000 people with him. Brings 1,000 people with him. They cross the shallows of the Jordan to bring the king's household. Now he's helping David come back. So David's this, well, watch this. This is so good. And said he's helping him in every way that he could. Shimei fell down before him. My lord the king, please forgive me, he pleaded. I know how much I sinned. That is why I've come here today, the very first person of all of Israel to greet my lord the king. Now watch this. Guess who's right by his side? Abisha. Abisha's right there, and Abisha said, he should die. Let me go kill him now. Right? That's what he said. He's just ready to just kill, man, right? He's ready to all the time. And he says this. He said, who asked your opinion? He exclaimed. He said, not this day. This isn't a day for executions. For today, I am once again king of Israel. Then turning to Shimei, he said, David vowed, your life will be spared. How do you respond to people when they talk bad about you, when they curse you, when they push every button that you have? Do you carry resentment? Do you carry around an offense day in and day out, month after month, year after year? Is that how you live? Do you live with resentment all the time? The Bible says this, fools mock at making amends for sin, but goodwill is found among the upright. I just have to pause here for a minute. I got to tell you something, okay? Because, see, you have to know the whole story. You have to know everything. And so David shows grace, but grace is not being gullible. It sounds like it's all good and everything. So Shimei, right? Shimei said, he goes from cursing him and throwing sticks at him to going, because he's not king. Now he's king. Oh, hey, we love you. You're great. That long-haired fool, he's gone. We don't like him. We love you. So David said, listen, I forgive you. David's not a fool. He's not gullible. He's not gullible. Matter of fact, if you read the whole story, what you find out is later on his deathbed, he tells another son, Solomon, who's going to replace him, he said, hey, he's on his deathbed. I got to tell you something. There's a guy that you need to watch. Keep him close. Shimei. And he could be trouble, right? And so Solomon, after his father dies, Solomon brings him in. He says, listen, my father forgave you. Not my dad. to that, I don't know you that well. So he makes a actually a legal covenant with them. You're gonna stay around where we can keep an eye on you. Got it? Same thing. You stay around and keep an eye on you, all's good. You leave. Now, the story, he leaves, he doesn't have the excuse now, he leaves, but you know what? He's dead. He's dead. So don't get this idea that David and grace is this thing where, well, it's all good and everything, let bygones be bygones and we forget, right? Forgiveness and grace, it's that kind of, no, it's not that. It's not that. Sometimes you have to say, like he told Solomon, keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on him. So I think this is such an important important message for us at this time. Are you with me? Grace and forgiveness. It's the way to live. But it's not being gullible. It's not being naive. It's not being, sticking your head in the sand. It's not what it is. You have to understand what it is. How about Jesus? The Bible talks about when they hurled insults at him. Huh? They hurled insults at him. He didn't retaliate. He didn't retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Why? Well, he entrusted himself in God. That's what he did. Then didn't worry about that periphery. The bottom line is we have to come to a place where, number one, we believe, believe isn't even the right word, that we have experienced the forgiveness of God. Like almost a palpable experience, right? That we know, not just intellectually, that God has forgiven us. And that God has, and I don't mean this as puppet thing, right? You know me enough by now when I say this, what I mean by it. That God has good plans for me. He has good plans. Then I can forgive others and I can move on. Let me just close with Psalm 103:8. The Lord is compassionate and merciful, slow to get angry, and filled with unfailing love. Let's stand. Lord, help us today to learn from David's life, the story of David's life, and everything that he's been through, and to extract these important lessons for us today that just seem like the story was made for a time like today, that everything we're going through. Help us, God, to not just hear these words and think they're good, but actually spend time to say, how can I be more like this? Lord, by your Spirit, show us when we're about to take an offense and hold on to offense, to learn that we have a choice and say, I'm not going to be offended. I'm not going to be troubled by this. I'm going to extend grace and love. Lord, because that's how we'll change this world. That's the only way we'll change this world. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thanks, friends. Have a great day. Thanks for being patient with me.